Welcome back to the Blog Boy Roundtable presented by the Bay Area Examiner. From the Bay Area Examiner, we have myself, Seth Varnador, Anthony Vito, Robert Stieg, and Nathan Bond. From DraftKings Network, we have Nick Simon. All right. Week one is officially in the books. We're going to use kind of our picks to talk about last week, and then we're picking the three biggest games, I think, of around the country this week, so we can kind of use that as a springboard to talk more. Just looking at the picks from last week, Stieg, undefeated, 4-0. Serious Stieg is here this season. Nailed the Northern Illinois plus 8.5. Also hit on FSU, Western Kentucky, and Utah over Florida. Stieg was the only one to pick Utah. Florida plus 6.5. Looked terrible. Almost had a chance to backdoor it, even though they were pretty awful. But not a great start from them. And then USF, probably the opposite, right? Probably should have covered. And WKU did backdoor it on them. So either one of those games, was there anything crazy? I thought the Florida game, their offensive line, that was a big concern coming out of that game. Going in, I felt like they did a pretty good job last year getting their offensive line to gel pretty quick. I kind of thought they'd be all right there. They were not. So what was that your big takeaway from that game, or what did you guys think?
They look atrocious from from the very beginning. Like they just got bullied, man. Like we were talking about like the impact of Cam Rising being not being cleared for Utah. That just straight up didn't matter. Like Florida, they just went out and laid an egg in that.
Yeah, rough start with a 70-yard touchdown on the first play. And then gave them a bunch of short fields, and Utah's a team that they just don't make mistakes. So if you give it to them, they're gonna punish you, even without Cam Rising. So
how you gonna rush for only 13 yards if you're the Gators and you're a Billy Napier offense?
Because they put 8 dudes in that box and said, throw a bunch of short passes, good luck, and
go for it. And sneaky, I had to look this up because I was like, there's no way. How did Graham Mertz throw for 333 yards?
Because they had 8 dudes in the box.
31 for 44, 330. That okay, that's not terrible.
No, he played all right. The rest of the team, not so great. And yeah, the inability to run the ball. And then every time they got in the red zone, much like a Clemson team who was my off the board pick, Clemson minus 13. Great call. But yeah, I think they had 2 fumbles inside the 5. Duke had a couple fumbles early in the game, but they just ended up getting pants in the second half.
Oh my!
Much like LSU, who I also picked. Everybody else at FSU. That was an unbelievable second half from Florida State. I thought at one point, LSU kind of screwed around. They could have been up 31-14.5, and they still would have lost because Florida State scored 31 points in the second half. What did you guys think about that game? That was kind of the game of the week. LSU, Florida State. Any thoughts on that one?
Best quarterback won. The thing that I was worried about going into the season, we talked about it, Jaden Daniels against the blitz was not great. Jordan Travis on the other side was phenomenal. And more often than not, if you have the better quarterback in college football, there's a decent chance you're going to win the game. And that proved out. And Florida State's defense, give them their credit, they locked it down in the second half too. It wasn't just an offensive showcase, but it helped.
Well, I mean, get this: third down efficiency, 9 for 14 for Norvell's squad. LSU 3 for 10 and 0 for 3 on fourth down. That's just not going to cut it. Jordan Travis played incredible. It looked like they were just amped up. That first half for both teams was a little too much. Once they settled in, I don't know if it was Norvell and Atkins just kind of made it simple, but y'all, that wide receiver tandem of Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson's going to be a problem. What do we even do? And then you throw in who had the long touchdown at the end. That was another transfer, Jaheim Bell.
Yeah.
I mean, they got weapons now. And with Clemson the way that they are, woo, buddy. Florida State played like we thought, and great game. They should be number 1 right now, by the way. I mean, they're the only team that beat down a top 5 team.
No, I think the LSU's lack of execution does hide some. The Florida State defense, I think they bowed up in they bowed up in important spots, but they didn't play great. And that was my biggest concern with them. But the offense is so good, it might not really. I don't think there's anybody that can score with them the rest of the year. Nick, what did you think about that game? What were your thoughts?
So, like everything you guys said, one thing, like I was like looking at one of the like they were doing the press conferences today, and one of the Florida State defensive guys was talking about how like midway through the game, one of the LSU offensive linemen looked at him and was like, "Man, you guys are good," and he was talking about like how like yeah, that's how we know we got him. Like you don't say that up front in like the middle of the game. So yeah, that was just like LSU didn't execute, but this Florida State team, like we've been saying or we predicted, they're the real deal. This team is the real deal, and like as you saw from last night with Clemson going down, like the power in the ACC is shifting back towards Tallahassee, and that game, Clemson, Florida State in a couple weeks, that's not going to be pretty. That is not going to be pretty at all.
Well, the thing just watching from like just the scheme side and like just a coaching, looking at Florida State's offense, right? There's you would like to play with two safeties over the top of those receivers. That would be nice, especially Coleman. You got to play somebody over top of Coleman, I think. But Florida State is such a good. I think for the rest of the season, especially, they're not going to face the defensive line that's going to give them a ton of problems. If you play too high, they're just going to run the ball down your throat. Now Clemson, that'll be in. I thought the Clemson defense played pretty good against Duke, and they finally broke at the end. But yeah, you play too high to stop the passing game, and now they're going to run the ball, and now you bring extra guys in the box, and now you have one of those guys one-on-one. So they're going to be difficult for somebody to solve besides like the elite of the elite teams, because you got to be able to go athlete on athlete with those two receivers, and not many people are going to be able to have two guys to cover those. Because neither of them are tiny either. They're big dudes. Steve, anything on that game? You picked FSU? Everything went according?
It was basically textbook of what I thought was going to happen. I mean, both these teams in a top match, you kind of consider, barring unforeseen circumstances, that it's going to be blow for blow for, the first half, and someone's going to make an adjustment, and one of those adjustments is going to work, and the other one's not. And, I mean, it played out in Florida State's favor. I'll credit Mike Norvell. He took his blows early. He took his punches early in his career at Florida State. There's a lot of doubt whether he could do it, especially from some of us. But he has them rolling. He's recruited extremely, extremely well there. He's put together an extremely talented and, more importantly, an extremely athletic team. Nice. I can go into talk about this, but it's kind of zigging while other teams are zagging at this point, because there's a lot of teams that are focusing on beefing up right now. The trend in Alabama and the Auburns and the Ohio States and Mids of the world is to beef up and to go in that direction, get the beefier linebackers and play bully ball. But for Florida State, they said, no, we can get forward athletes here. We can get some of the fastest guys, some of the guys that have more athleticism than everyone else. And they went out there and proved it against a very good LSU team that may have been missing a few guys here and there, but overall, that's an extremely talented LSU team.
Yeah, and definitely, I think you see Florida State in the top 4 in the AP. That Clemson game is kind of the last road bump for a while for them. So if they get through that one, they're going to house some Wake Forest and those types of teams. So let's get to the games we're picking this week, and this will kind of lead us into kind of talking about probably the second biggest game just in terms of buzz. We're going to pick Nebraska at Colorado. Colorado is a 3-point favorite. The over-under is 59.5. I think we've talked about it. We thought, I thought Colorado would be pretty good on offense if they could block, because we've seen Jimmy Horn, we've seen Xavier Weaver, both that we as USF people know both those guys are NFL guys. Travis Hunter's a different kind of dude. And so it's hard for people to guard those three, and then you add in the back Edwards, who is a true freshman, super explosive and slippery, and Shedeur just kind of putting the ball exactly where it needs to be and making really good decisions. They were even better than I thought they'd be early. Did that surprise you guys, or is it kind of like, yeah, they have good skill guys, they're going to be able to throw the ball around a little bit?
I thought it was shocking. I mean, I didn't expect them to go. I think TCU has, had a lot of guys graduate, and there's always going to be a learning curve there. But offensively, they look like a juggernaut already. And Shedeur Sanders, I mean, he just already set Colorado records game one. Like that you almost have to really, and everyone kind of knew Colorado was going to be one of these. You got to see to believe, or got to see what's going to end up happening. But if they can shore up the defense and they don't have to, get bullied on the lines, let's say, and they can just run spread and do what they need to do. This is a top 25 team, maybe even better. It's shocking. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this. I don't know if you guys have, but I think Colorado -3 easily. I don't trust Nebraska right now at all.
All right. Yeah, I guess my big question is, and this is what it felt like, this is what it feels like a little bit to me. I think it's different, but it feels – you remember Mike Leach's first game at Mississippi State? They played LSU. They threw for like 600 yards or something on LSU, and everyone's like, oh, the air raid can't work in the SEC, huh? And everyone kind of was, really this is obviously going to work. They're going to kill everyone. And then they kind of had a mediocre season, and it turned out LSU was just not very good on defense, right? So that's that popped in my head. Thinking about kind of watching that one, I think the offense is going to be good, though. My big concern is their defense. Steve, where are you going in this Colorado game? Does the defense concern you, or are you just you're on the train with Coach Prime?
It's I'm trying to think of the best way I can convey this without sounding like I can simultaneously not necessarily think that Colorado is going to be able to sustain this for the entire season because of their defense. I think you caught a TCU team that I think I harped on this before, hadn't built on their success, didn't really rebuild from the success they had previously, and it kind of showed because they made a lot of really careless mistakes, and a lot of guys are wide open running around and kind of got in the spotlight there. And so when I watched that game, the only thing I could think of is, this is more an indictment on TCU and the flash in the pan that they had than what I think Colorado is going to be, because we knew Colorado's offense was going to be good, but yet you couldn't, that defense at times just very suspect and didn't look like they wanted to close them out, which is kind of strange coming from a Deion Sanders coach defense. But going into this game with Rule coaching Nebraska there, my line of thinking is Matt Rule is one of those coaches that he has to go like 1-11 his first season to just tear that thing down, rip up the floorboards, throw out all the signs, throw out all that crap. And then he starts rebuilding his team and he starts doing really well because Matt Rule is a really good coach, but he needs to kind of start this thing from the bottom up. So I'm erring on more of the side of favoring Colorado this game, not necessarily as a testament to what Colorado is doing, because again, I am kind of suspect. I think they're going to give up a lot of points this year and are going to have to score a lot of points to keep this up. But I also look at the other side of the game and say, I don't think Nebraska is very good. I don't think they're going to be very good this year. I think they'll be very good in the future. And so that's kind of where I'm leaning at. So I'm on Colorado here, but not on Colorado probably forward after this.
Nathan, you like to go with the better quarterback. You going with Shedeur Sanders or Jeff Sims?
Such a hard choice, right? Man, it's tough. Like, I don't love the way Deion went about things, but I mean, you can't deny the result. Like, that was freaking impressive over the weekend. I saw 4 100-yard receivers. I saw Spencer Hall from Shutdown Fullcast said, just kind of off on Twitter saying, I don't think I was able to get 4 100-yard receivers like I'm playing NCAA. Like, that is a feat among itself. I think the offense, like we've said, is going to be really, really good. It's going to get real pointsy, and I'm thinking maybe it's like a 2016 USF vibe where just the offense just has to take it up to another gear because the defense is not great, and you're going to see massive amounts of points and yards from this offense if everybody stays healthy. I'm taking Colorado. Nebraska's just not good enough offensively to keep up with them, and neither is their defense.
And you can also, if you'd like, take the over-under. The over-under is 59.5, if anybody likes that. Nick, where are you leaning? I think we might have a sweep on this one. It's hard not to after that last week's game. Where are you leaning here?
Oh, yeah, just like everyone else, Colorado, just those guys we mentioned. It kind of like touched on what you just said about Florida State, particularly on offense with Colorado, just athletes and speed with Sanders, our former friends, Horn, Weaver, Edwards. Dude, those guys, they put on a show. They put on a show on Saturday. It was just it was unbelievable how well all of those guys, obviously Travis Hunter, like those guys were just unbelievable all Saturday long. I will say this about Nebraska, going like kind of looking at the box score from their game against Minnesota last Thursday. They should have won that game because you go back and you look at it. Hold on, where did I put it? Yeah, you go back and look at it. They held Minnesota to 3.6 yards per play, 2.2 yards per rush. Like they could have easily won that game. It's just the problem is they turned the ball over 4 times versus Minnesota's 1 turnover that entire game. So. Yeah, like they could. So they should be. So Nebraska should be 1-0 coming into this game, and when it comes down to it, if it comes down to in a like theoretical like track meet, you're not like God bless him. You're not trusting Jeff Sims to keep up. Like that kid's been through the ringer, man. And yeah, just give me Colorado all day for this one.
Yeah, the Nebraska defense, look what you mentioned, they might be pretty good, but so that would kind of scare me off the over maybe, but I just don't think Nebraska's offense is going to – I think that's going to take some time regardless of how bad the Colorado defense may be. So I think you probably see Nebraska run the ball a ton, try to control the clock, so maybe that over – wouldn't be good, so I'm just going to stick with everybody else and go Colorado -3 as well. There's just got a lot of explosiveness, and 3 points at home, that seems all right. So next pretty big out-of-conference game here. We've got Texas A&M on the road going to Miami. Miami won the Battle of Miami last week. Texas A&M has Bobby Petrino. Offense looked pretty good. Connor Wegman's a pretty good player. Basically, to me, these are somewhat similar teams. Can you trust the coaching staff? I don't think the home field advantage will be that great. So I'm just going to take the team that's more talented. I'll take Texas A&M -4.5, even though it's kind of between 2 numbers here. But give me Texas A&M. Let's go to Steeg here. What are you thinking? Texas A&M 4.5 point favorite at Miami.
This one feels gross to bet. I didn't like it. And when I saw the line, I was like, I really don't like this. And so I just have to. This is like kind of like a vibes pick more than anything. It's just like which team do you think is less likely to just clutch themselves? And to me, that's kind of Miami right now. I just think Texas A&M is big fraudster. Some point, and I think you need to call spade a spade with Jimbo Fisher leading the helm. I'm going to give the edge very slightly, just like they said. I think they'll win by 7, but I'm not. I don't love what Miami's put together either. But I still think that they're going to end up winning here.
All right, Nathan, you hate Mario Cristobal, right? Or I'm sorry, you don't trust him. Where are you leaning here? Or do you trust Jimbo more, I guess, is the question.
Yeah, I mean, technically speaking, Jimbo's had more success than Mario has at all their combined stops. I will say it was a nice bounce back for Tyler Van Dyke after probably one of the worst football seasons from a pretty hyped prospect and QB talent over the last few years. So it was nice. He went 17-22, 200-something yards, a touchdown and an interception. But I'm going to go A&M. I got to see it more than one game from this Miami team to trust anything. So I'll take Texas and Texas A&M and hope for the best.
Would it change your pick if I told you that Tyler Van Dyke copyrighted the phrase Tyler Van Dime today?
Ugh.
No, it would just cement the fact that he's just an unserious quarterback.
Well, there you go. Nick, does Tyler Van Dime of it all sway your pick?
Nah. Yeah, so dime, Jesus. Yeah, I'm gonna go Texas. I'm gonna go Texas A&M here. Like this game shouldn't be like this game. I think this game could actually be a good watch versus last year's abomination between these two teams. Like that game was rough. That game was rough to watch. Both teams did what they had to do against their G5 opponents last week. Both quarterbacks, Van Dyke was efficient, Connor Wigman was efficient. The thing about this game, I think, will come down to Henry Parrish here for Miami and his ability to run against that Texas A&M front seven. But again, kind of similar with Steve, just kind of based on vibes. Right now, I'm just going to give the edge to A&M. I think there's actually a little bit more juice with Bobby Petrino as the offensive coordinator. I think he can at least like help this Aggie team put more points on the board than they did last year. And I think ultimately, like it'll be a good this should be a good game. But I think A&M wins by a touchdown here.
All right, Vito, your last one here on this game. What are you thinking?
This game's in Coral Gables, but I mean, Texas A&M put up 4 touchdowns in the second quarter. This game was out of reach before halftime. 52. Connor Wegman looked incredible. 5 touchdowns, only 18 to 23 completions. I mean, that's pretty solid. The interesting thing about Miami, Tyler Van Dime. Oh my goodness. Spread it around. They had 3. Spread it around a bit. Looks like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different receivers touched the ball. I don't know if that means much. I think Bobby Petrino kind of showed you what he wants to do, and if Jimbo lets him do his thing, then I bet talent. So I would go ahead and say Texas A&M covers here on the road. It'll be an interesting game. Hopefully, there's a lot of offense because that would be better than the what happened last year.
You don't want the 17-9 game again. Yeah, apparently Texas A&M. I didn't watch the game, but apparently they went a little bit more tempo. They were 25th, I think I heard somewhere, in pace in week 1, which is much different than they've been. So I like Wegman. I think he's a pretty good player, and Evan Stort's a stud. So
another interesting stat that I looked at: Texas A&M 9 penalties for 88 yards, and Miami had hold on, let's see. They had 8 penalties for 60 yards. So 2 boots could be a highly penalized game. Those just jumped out in the box score looking at that one. So we'll see.
There's a penalty prop. You may go over there. So
yes, please.
All right, let's go. All right. So then probably the game of the week this week, you got Texas at Alabama. Texas lost by 1 point last year at home. Alabama is a 7.5-point favorite at home. Stieg, what are you thinking? Horns up or horns down here?
Ooh, baby. I got to watch a little bit of that Alabama game actually against Middle Tennessee State. And what immediately jumped out to me about that game was how different Alabama felt. It didn't, I mean, obviously you're playing Middle Tennessee State as Alabama. You're not going to be throwing the book at them. You're not going to be doing anything too complex. You're going to kind of ease off a little bit. But at times they look like they really eased off of Middle Tennessee State's offense, especially for an elite Alabama defense. Yes, they pitched a shutout, but there were times that, they allowed Middle Tennessee State to start pushing them up the field quite a bit. And that was a lot of cause for concern watching that game. And then I remembered, oh yeah, it's Alabama. They're really good at this. They're really good at maybe not looking super prepared against a group of 5, a smaller school like that, and then coming out lights out because they still have one of the best coaches coaching them at the current juncture. So I'm still going to take Bama here. I know Texas is building a lot. They have a lot of talent on offense. They didn't really come lights flashing against Rice, but I don't think that's too much of a cause for concern. I think at some point the Bama dynasty is going to start the tipping point. I don't think it's this year though, so I'm going to pick the Tide here.
All right, Nick, what are you thinking here? You got Texas at Bama, the old assistant. You got the assistant against Saban. You got it all. Where are you going?
I'm going opposite Stieg. I'm going to go with Texas almost said Texas A&M, Texas to cover on the road here. An interesting thing about Bama, particularly with Jalen Milroe as the quarterback, he only ran the ball 7 times but he led. I mean, they had a bunch of people get carries in this game. He led with 48 yards. It really, with Bama in particular, it really feels like okay, we don't have like elite, first round receivers walking through the door. So we're gonna take this thing back. We're gonna go back to early 2010s Alabama, where we're just gonna run the damn ball, and there's nothing you can do about it. But I think Texas, under Sark, they've been building themselves into the image of Alabama. And if there's a game where you want to prove, where you actually want to prove it and get over the hump, it's this one. They came so close last year, and now all those guys, Quinn Ewers, Xavier Worthy, year older, more experience. That's going to be an interesting matchup. Seeing Worthy go up against Kool-Aid McKinstry, that's going to be fun to watch. But yeah, I think it's going to be similar to last year's game, where this is going to be a tight one, and I'm just going to take the Longhorns here.
Vito, you on the clock in your drafts, or are you able to jump in right here?
Oh no, I'm good. I just drafted Christian McCaffrey. Let's go, baby.
There you go. All right, I'll jump in then. What do you think? So you got Steve with Bama, you got Nick with Texas. Where are you leaning?
I like what you said, Nick, about Jalen Milroe, because I was thinking the same thing. It's like this might be, we're going to go back to what we do best and see if some of these receivers will develop into something else. I mean, Alabama looked great, 2 touchdowns every quarter. Can't beat that every time you do that. I think that Texas is amped because they were so close to winning last year, and they might have done it if Quinn Ewers wasn't hurt. Down to the last kick, 7.5 almost feels a little too juicy. Like if this was anything less, and all we know, Alabama can do whatever. Texas against Rice didn't look as dominant as they needed to be, but in the third quarter they got, they outscored Rice 21-0. Maybe they're not trying to show anything for Bama, and maybe Bama's not going to try to show anything this week because they got a big game in week 3. I like Texas to cover. Let's go ahead and give it a shot. Horns all the way up. If Texas is going to do it, it's got to be this year. And I think they're going to be amped to play at Alabama.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to let Nathan go last year because he might call us all dummies. We'll see. But I'm leaning Texas as well. They didn't I saw they kind of messed around with Rice, but you look at available yards, they're number 1 in the country in terms of defensively available. They only allowed Rice to gain 13.5% of available yards. Now, Alabama's number 2 at 14.9%. But the Texas defense played pretty well. They've probably got, if you were going unit for unit, the Texas offense is probably better than the Alabama offense. I guess the worry is Alabama's huge up front. They're going to just want to run the ball and mash the ball. Can Texas hold up? I think if it was 7, it might be a little bit more difficult, but 7.5, you could still cover losing by a touchdown. I'm going to go with Texas as well. Nate, is this where you tell us we're all dumb for betting against Nick Saban?
No, you guys aren't dumb. You just make bad choices in your life. That's a topic for another day. Yeah. Bama, I don't trust Sark as far as I can throw him. I like Quinn Ewers. He was fine against Rice, 19-31, 61% completion percentage, 3 touchdowns. But I kind of expect more out of you against Rice. I know his average depth of target was like 11.5 yards down the field, so he was chucking the ball down the field a little bit, so that can lead to a lower completion percentage. But again, it's Rice and you're Texas. I would expect it closer to 70, 75. And even his adjusted completion percentage was still well under 70%, accounting for drops and everything like that. Alabama's fun. I like their quarterback. I think he's dynamic. I think he popped off 2 touchdown runs, if I'm not mistaken, and the other 2 quarterbacks also had rushing touchdowns. While the running backs didn't really do too much, I think he's dynamic enough to make it interesting and be a +1 in the run game a little bit. I'm taking Bama until proven otherwise. Bama is still it.
Yeah, it's hard to argue, right? But I don't. All the Texas people. Do you think Texas wins or just covers? I think.
Just
I think
covers.
a cover, right?
I don't think it'll be a win. I just think it'll be closer than anyone expects. Maybe not similar to last year. That's 7.5. If it was 3.5, no. But they might only lose by a touchdown. So
I think remember last year it was
helps.
20.5.
Yeah.
We all still picked Bama. I'm pretty sure too.
Well, no one expected what they did.
Yeah. So Nick, what do you think? Do you think they got a chance to win, or is this kind of just it's over 7? Feel good about a cover?
I think I'm gonna say it. I think they squeak by and they outright win this one.
Hot take.
I know the whole thing. Like, don't bet against Nick Saban. I get it. Like I said, man. Like if it's gonna happen, this is gonna be it right here. It's when you have the experienced quarterback, because next year you're going to be rolling redshirt freshman Arch out, and that's going to be kind of a process to start all over, especially in the SEC. So there's going to be a sense of urgency this Saturday.
Yeah, and
we're going to put you in the blender if you get this one wrong, by the way.
Well, my concern about Milroe is even on some of those bombs he hit, like he hit a bomb to Jermaine Burton. Jermaine Burton was wide open, but the ball was way inside. Like, if he's got a good defensive back on him, it might be an interception. So that's kind of also leads into my Texas pick. He was a turnover machine, and that Arkansas game was the game he started, I think. Had some great plays, but also turned the ball over. All right, now we're going off the board here. Anybody who have a pick they want to jump in with? I guess I'll start. All right, somebody explain this to me, right? I'm going Oregon -6.5 at Texas Tech. All right, Texas Tech. I think some people thought their defense was going to be a lot better. The defense, I don't think, was the issue. They lose to Wyoming. A weird game where there's like weather delays. I think that kind of factors into a weird game. Now you got to travel. Your travel gets thrown off. You got to come back home. But this is an Oregon team. Everyone thinks is going to be pretty good this year. Under a touchdown. I know it's on the road at Texas Tech, but Texas Tech's a team that wants to throw the ball, and they were not able to throw the ball very well against Wyoming. So I'm going to take Oregon -6.5 at Texas Tech. Kind of a weird spot. Texas Tech coming off a loss. Maybe it's a square take, but I'm going to go with it.
Dang,
better
Seth,
quarterback, right? Bo Nix.
Broadway Bo. You said square take earlier. This was my pick as well. I'll pick something else on my list, but just check out some of these stats. I mean, Portland State scored in the first quarter, and then Oregon rolled off 81.
Yeah.
How 3 quarterbacks played? Bo Nix looked good. I mean, they only played a little bit. I'm going to go a completely sicko pick.
Oh.
UConn +3 over Georgia State.
Oh.
Georgia State struggled a little bit against their FCS opponent. Or hold on, I'm gonna back up real quick because I had a thing for this. Did they play Delaware? No.
I know UConn played North Carolina State pretty tough, but was able to run the ball on them a little bit.
I wanted to pull this up
the fighting.
UConn looked pretty good. They have some players, and Georgia State did not look very impressive in their win versus Rhode Island. URI 42-35. Georgia State's at home, but I don't know if you can trust them. UConn might have a coach in Jim Mora Jr. I kind of like that at +3. I don't know if Georgia State's going to win, or I that seemed really, really low to me. Just like the Oregon one seemed really, really low to me from a line standpoint. So that's my sicko pick of the week.
I like it. I like that a lot, Vito. Nick, what do you got?
Jump on the GJ Kinney train. I'm going Texas State plus 12 and a half versus UTSA. Texas State, probably the biggest surprise of week one, just going in and just
Throttling
Baylor, man. Like that was impressive, just right out the gate. Like, yeah, we're gonna go up to Waco and beat these guys. And now you're playing UTSA, which, if you don't know, like that's like the I-35, like that's an actual rivalry down there. It's like under the radar, but UTSA and Texas State, they hate each other. And Kenny, coming off this big win, you know, you have TJ Finley, who finally found a home. He bounced from LSU to Auburn. He balls out his first game for Texas State against Baylor. Those guys, he's going to be firing those guys for this particular rivalry game. So, yeah. And plus, like, you look at UTSA last week versus Houston, Frank Harris, 3 interceptions, didn't play necessarily well. He should bounce back, but don't sleep on Texas State, even if it's in year one, man. That I'm just saying that was impressive what they did.
Over under for that game 66.5. So that should be a fun one to watch. All right, so we got Nate and Stieg hit their off the board picks last week. We'll go to Nate. He had Penn State minus 20.5 and nailed it. I mean, just never in doubt.
So I'm going to go something interesting, kind of going off of one of Stieg's favorite teams. Oklahoma State at Arizona State. Arizona State's favored by 3.5.
Really?
That one kind of confuses me. Like, I know Jaden Rashada is there, and they look pretty good in week one. And Oklahoma State didn't look great in their game. I don't like. It's kind of like the Dion Collery or whatever, however you want to say that word. Does a coaching change and everything like that, does it really change that much? Is like that kind of can you progress that much? It's weird. I'm taking Oklahoma State in the points. I got to see it. I got to see Rashada again with tape.
Just for reference, DraftKings has Oklahoma State as a 3.5 point favorite. You still like it?
Did I look at that wrong? I still like it. Maybe I wrote it wrong. I like it. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I wrote it wrong when I was researching. Yeah, I still like it. I think that's still – it just doesn't make any sense. But I'm still taking Oklahoma State.
And speaking of like an opposite or you said a corollary to Dion, but like an opposite in terms of belovedness, Mike Gundy. But the guy is like a covering machine. So – they do really. He's really good against the spread in his career. So that's a short number at Arizona State. Do they have a big home field advantage out there? I don't know. Stieg, you were number one last week, 4-0. In case I didn't read off the records, I was last with 1-3. Vito and Nick both went 2-2. Nate went 3-1. But Stieg was undefeated. It has not missed yet.
Jazz
Pull
hands,
the wool
baby,
over
jazz
eyes.
hands. The serious Stieg's here to stay.
Stieg also
Nate,
has TCU under 7.5. By the way, that was his preseason pick. Just to let everyone know. So.
Hey, UT might hit their over a little quicker than I thought they were too. They got a pretty good win this past week. So Nate, I was gonna actually go with that game as well. Opposite direction. I've been on the Mike Gundy needs to go train for a little bit, and I think in the last was a lot of farts on the Oklahoma State sideline, but I decided to venture up one pick on the DraftKings Nation because I saw this one and the line looked a little strange to me, all things considered. Auburn at Cal. Auburn's the 6.5 point favorite. I don't know if you guys watched, did any research or anything and watched any of the other American Athletic Conferences last week. Boy, howdy, did Cal look really good against North Texas. And it's because of two guys that'll lead them to victory here in an upset over Auburn. Sam Jackson, the fifth, transferred in from TCU, and Jaden Ott, running back from Cal. Both are just absolutely electric. I mean, these guys don't just have like speed. These guys have like speed. And then on the other side of the gambit, Auburn beat UMass last week. Looked a little sluggish, looked a little slow. It's still a free start. They're still reeling in the new coach and gelling a new system, et cetera, et cetera. I think I'm going to take Cal here on the upset over Auburn. Late night on the West Coast. A lot of things I don't love for an East Coast team to make that travel. And so there's my pick for the week. It's Cal with a big upset. For what are they in? The ACC.
Yeah, future ACC. The Pac-12 is undefeated so far, so
which is why we have to kill that comment.
Yeah, they're obviously
brilliant. It's amazing.
Can't compete.
I love
back.
Just like the ACC being poor is really affecting Florida State's football team. So, all right, that's another week of picks. We'll be back next week to recap and pick some more games. Gentlemen, thank you, and thank you for watching.